You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Now we discuss the nature of Satan. Who is Satan? Is the Satan of Islam the same Satan that exists in other religions? What is his purpose? What sort of powers does he possess? And do these powers compete with God? Should Muslims have reason to fear him? Let's answer those questions now, Brother Shabir. Who is Satan, to begin with?
In the Bible, we read that when Adam and Eve were in the garden, they were tempted by the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, there are echoes of this elsewhere in the Bible, referring to Lucifer. And it seems that the idea is that this, what appeared as a serpent there, is not simply a serpent, but this is more a spiritual figure that had influence on Adam and Eve. In the book of Job, we find that Satan is one of the sons of God, meaning one of the angels, and Satan, I say this Satan because this word really means the adversary or the enemy,
Okay.
The opponent. The opponent here, Satan, says to God, well, Job is so comfortably obeying you because all is well and good with him, but strike him with some calamity and see he will turn away and not give thanks. So Satan then is setting himself up as an adversary and trying to
human
prove
beings then? Adversary
to prove adversary to human beings, maybe even adversary to God, and trying to prove a point. In the Islamic tradition, especially in the Quran, we have it that when God created Adam and Eve, he told them, he told the angels to bow down to Adam and Eve because this might mean somehow that Adam and Eve are superior to angels. And all of the angels bowed down except for Satan. Well, who exactly is Satan then? It says actually Iblis. It doesn't say, at this point, he's given a name. So Muslims understand that Iblis is his personal name, but he is a Satan, one who has somehow been distanced from God. And it's not only him, but there is a whole slew of them. So who are this slew?
So there are a bunch of Satans then?
Yes. In the Bible, we read about fallen angels. Well, mostly what is known in Islamic tradition is that angels do not have the potential for committing evil. But there's another sort of creature, the jinn kind, who can commit evil. They, like human beings, have the freedom of choice between good and bad. And in this case, the Satans are the devils, are the ones from among the jinn kind, or genie, to use an English equivalent term. So these are these genies who have chosen to do wrong with the freedom of choice that God has given them. Satan, or the Satan, when we speak about the Satan, we're speaking about the biggest one.
The head honcho.
Yes, Iblis or Diabolos, to use a Greek term.
So can you call him devil as well?
Yes.
Would that be an appropriate term?
Yes, being the equivalent of Diabolos, yes. So the Quranic narrative then shows that Satan tried to, or Iblis tried to, trick Adam and Eve into getting them to eat from the forbidden tree. And this is when Adam and Eve then fell. But in the Quran, we don't find that Satan has such a prominence in that he accomplishes anything. In the end, it seems that all of his plans and all of his trickery fails, because in the story of Adam, for example, we find that God eventually forgave Adam, according to the Quran. So there's no original sin in the Islamic concept that hands down from one generation to the other. Adam sinned, but then he repented and God forgave him. So even after everything that Satan does, or all of the shayateen, this whole slew of them, after all that they do in terms of inciting people to do evil, in the end they accomplish nothing, because God forgives people after they have committed sins.
So how did this Satan, as you mentioned, get his power?
Well, all power, according to the Islamic understanding, belongs to God, and God bestows power on his creatures. He has given human beings freedom of will, and we can use that freedom to do good or to do harm. And Satan, or the shayateen, the Satans, were given similar abilities. They can use it for good or for harm. Because they're ethereal creatures, they are able to influence human thought, we believe. And so they're using that influence to influence that ability to influence human thought to steer them towards evil. So sometimes we have a thought and we say we don't know where that thought came from. And people sometimes say to each other, what got into you? As if something that is out of character that suddenly occurred to you, and you're acting in this out of character manner. That may be due to a devilish inspiration. And we have to be on guard to not follow these devilish inspirations.
Mm-hmm. For a Muslim, this can be fearful, right? This can be something that Satan can be something to be feared. For example, like we can't see Satan, but he can influence our thoughts.
Well, he's somewhat to be aware of, but not to be feared.
Okay.
The Quran does not tell us to fear Satan. The Quran tells us to fear God, because God has the ultimate power. And God could destroy Satan if he wants, but God allows Satan to exist, obviously because his existence fulfills a purpose. Even though he has a negative view of his own existence, they think that they're trying to create havoc and cause harm. But with all that they're doing, they produce some good results unwittingly. Because when they cause people to sin, or they influence people and people commit sins, and then people turn back to God and seek his forgiveness, well then God forgives these persons, and that would not have been possible if Satan had not influenced them in the first place. And the forgiveness of God is sweet to receive, and the turning back to God, in fact, gives the believer a certain deep sense of faith that was not there before. So even his plots, though negative as they are, do serve some greater purpose in the end, that some good result comes about from these negative actions.
I believe there's a verse where Satan says to God, well, I shall misguide them all except for your faithful servants.
Yes.
So it seems like there's some individuals that he simply cannot do anything with.
Yes, he recognizes that if somebody is sincerely trying to worship God, then that person could not be misled even by these whisperings. And if somebody is going to choose a path of wrong anyhow, because we have our own inclinations as well. So when Satan puts the thought in the person's mind, it's up to the person to say, yeah, that sounds good, I want to do that, or no, that sounds awful, I can't do that.
So we retain our free will.
Exactly. So human beings in the end cannot blame Satan according to the Quran, because the Quran does not, according to the Quran, Satan does not have that great degree of influence to be able to steer a person against his or her will. So if one decides to follow Satan, that's really coming from the individual himself or herself, and one would then have in the end no one to blame but oneself for one's actions. And in the end, Satan doesn't really accomplish anything. So in the Islamic view of things, Satan is not very powerful. He cannot be an adversary to God, but he asked God, give me respite until the day of judgment, and you will see I will take many into hell. And God says, okay, do what you want. You think you can prove something? You won't be able to prove anything in the end, because as for my righteous servants, you won't be able to do anything with them.
All right, thank you for that, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break. When we return, we will answer questions we receive from you, our viewers.